Foreign adoption seems like the perfect solution to a heartbreaking imbalance. Poor countries have babies in need of homes, and rich countries have homes in need of babies. This idea led Guatemala into becoming one of the greatest exporters of children into the United States. As international adoption became more popular in the U.S., the Land of Eternal Springs' quick and easy adoption process made the country one of the favorites, giving hundreds of Guatemalan orphans a home. With a lightly regulated system and a seemingly endless amount of healthy, available children, Guatemala soon became the second major source of foreign adopted children in the U.S. However, this convenient exchange system was barely the surface. As adopting from Guatemala became notably easier than adopting from other countries, inter-country adoptions increased at incredible rates and to massive numbers. The number of adoptions began growing and growing in 1996 and continued to increase until 2006 or 2007, when there were 5,000 adoptions. Over the course of 9 years, from 1997 to 2006, the number of Guatemalan children adopted by Americans more than quadrupled, with 1 out of every 110 Guatemalan children born adopted by Americans. As numbers kept rising, international adoption in Guatemala shifted from a mutually beneficial system to an alarming situation for the country's children and their families.
Habían bandas estructuradas, redes muy grandes estructuradas a nivel nacional que tenían como trabajo el de robar niños en edades de 0 a 4 años para poderlos luego vender.
Facilitating adoptions had proved to be a very good business that, combined with weak adoption policies, encouraged corruption and crime. In a country where the gross domestic product per capita was $4,700 per year, child finders earned an average of $7,000 per infant. It is not really true that there are large numbers of infants with no homes who either will be in institutions or who need inter-country adoption. With the continuously increasing interest in healthy adoptable children and the lack thereof in Guatemala, facilitators and adopting agencies appeal to illegal means to obtain more children, and encounter them quite easily. Child finders took advantage of the high levels of illiteracy, poverty, and naivety in Guatemala in order to find and buy or steal infants. Trafficking in children and the sale of children for the purpose of inter-country adoption were widespread. Mothers were often tricked into giving up their children, newborns were stolen by nurses, and infants were kidnapped and trafficked on a daily basis. Adoption in Guatemala had become a demand-driven industry, developed to meet the needs of adoptive families in developed countries, specifically the United States. In a system where agencies were interested in finding children for American families rather than homes for Guatemalan children, kids were not being protected and risked being sold into abusive and unhealthy environments.
And we said, okay, yes, there are wrong things going on, but we have a law, so let's apply the law.
In light of the worsening situation, UNICEF, together with other NGOs, began to pressure the government of Guatemala to address the problem of international adoption. In response, Guatemala joined the Hague Convention on Inter-Country Adoption and implemented it through a new adoption law on December 31, 2007. Consequently, it centralized all adoptions and created the National Adoptions Council, known as the CNA.
The law now says that anybody that does not belong to this office of the government is forbidden to do adoptions.
In addition, all international adoptions were then closed with the exception of those that were already being processed when the law was implemented. Organizations applauded Guatemala's decision to join the Hague Convention, and the number of adoption-related crimes decreased, but the welfare of children was overlooked. Eliminating corruption was the goal. Ensuring children live in families in a legal and ethical manner should have been.
The Hague has been a negative influence for a variety of reasons. It's used in terms of other countries, poor countries, they're pressured to ratify it. And in the course of ratifying, first of all, some of them just don't have the infrastructure to actually then create the central authority. So they may ratify, but now they can't do what The Hague requires. So all of a sudden now they can't do international adoption.
Before The Hague, 97% of adoptions in Guatemala were inter-country adoptions, so the total closing of international adoptions meant a major decrease in the adoptions in the country as a whole. Since 2007, the number of total adoptions in Guatemala has dropped significantly, and orphan populations in state institutions continue to increase. According to the CNA, in 2010, only 35 children were adopted in the whole year.
Because really the law was something that was against the children. It was not in favor of them. So all the children have to go through there. And all the parents, so it's centralized adoption. Okay. But it doesn't work at all.
Although the illegal forms of exploration, encounter, and exchange within the international adoption process were stopped, the fundamental issue of ensuring children welfare within a family unit has not been achieved. Today, despite the clear flaws in Guatemala's adoption system, there have been no major changes to its processes and restrictions. Now, instead of fearing being forcefully trafficked as merchandise, Guatemala's orphans face crowded and harsh conditions in state institutions, with incredibly high odds of never getting adopted. Regulations and reforms in the country's adoption laws were certainly needed, but the specific restrictions implemented by the Guatemalan government and The Hague have not been beneficial to the country's orphaned youth. Ideally, international adoptions should be opened again, but with due, balanced restrictions in order to ensure the children's safety and avoid high levels of corruption and traffic that went out of control a decade ago.
Anything that any of the governments can do to provide more effectively and lessen the bureaucracy, but keep children safe, I'm all for that. And keep the process legitimate, I'm all for that.
It is part of the mission of this documentary to inform and invite the audience to take part in the conversation regarding international adoption and the quest toward finding a reconciling and effective solution.